Hello, everyone. My name is Maria J. Ordonez Ruiz, and I am a leader with the Brighton Park Neighborhood Council. Welcome to this public forum to discuss the impact of charter schools and the funding of district schools. Today, we will hear powerful testimonies from community leaders as well as informative presentations on the true impact that the policies the Board of Education has pursued last year have had on our schools.
Buenas tardes, estamos aquí para discutir el impacto de las escuelas charter y el presupuesto de las escuelas públicas de Chicago y cómo han sido nuestras escuelas impactadas.
Last year, parents at schools throughout the city were outraged at over $30 million in budget cuts throughout the district. In Brighton Park, community leaders rallied in opposition to the $7.5 million budget cuts that we received. And here in Shields Middle, we received a budget cut of $2,000. These budget cuts happened on top of CPS deciding to close 50 schools. As a result, many people in the community were surprised to learn that just a few months later, CPS had begun to provide funding for new charter schools in our community. We had thought that CPS had not had enough money to open district schools here, yet all of a sudden there was money to open more charter schools.
El año pasado fue desde las escuelas mediante la ciudad estuvieron enojados porque más de 3 millones de dólares en el presupuesto fueron cortados del distrito. En Brighton Park, líderes de la comunidad marcharon en oposición a los 7.5 millones de dólares de cortos y aquí en la escuela Shields hemos recibido un presupuesto de $200,000. Ese presupuesto ha pasado al nivel de las escuelas públicas de Chicago, decidiendo que se cerraran más de 50 escuelas. Como resultado de esto, mucha gente de la comunidad estuvieron sorprendidas de aprenderlo. Unos meses después, las escuelas públicas de Chicago empezaron a proveer fondos para las escuelas charter en nuestra comunidad. Nosotros pensábamos de que las escuelas públicas de Chicago no tenían suficiente dinero para abrir más escuelas en ese distrito, pero de repente todo el dinero estaba ahí para abrir más escuelas charter.
We cannot allow CPS to use our resources that should be used at our CPS schools and not charter schools. CPS must consider the effect and impact it has on our families and the community. Here at Shields Middle, we are a family. Our children fulfill their dreams. Teachers and staff are here to help our children become our future leaders. They are their second parents. Last spring, my son went to his shadow day at Kelly High School and was so looking forward to his freshman year due to all that he saw that Kelly had to offer him. Beginning in the 9th grade on his first day of high school, we were saddened to learn, due to the budget cuts imposed by CPS, many teachers and programs had been eliminated. Why does CPS have to support charter schools?
No podemos permitir de que las escuelas, que el Departamento de Escuelas Públicas de Chicago usen nuestros recursos que deberían usar para las escuelas públicas y no para las escuelas charter. El distrito escolar debe que considerar el impacto que está haciendo nuestras familias y en nuestra comunidad. Aquí en Shields Middle School somos una familia, nuestros hijos llenan nuestros sueños. Maestros y ayudantes en la escuela ayudan a nuestros hijos a que se conviertan en líderes de nuestro futuro. Son como el segundo un tipo de padres. La pasada primavera mi hijo fue a esta escuela, a Kelly High School, a ver a Kelly High School para ver cuáles eran su futuro entrando como un freshman. Y vio de que lo que Kelly tenía para ofrecerle. Empezando en el 9º grado, en su primer día de high school, nos entristecimos al aprender de que los cortos en presupuestos por el sistema escolar, muchos maestros y programas habían sido eliminados. ¿Por qué tenemos que apoyar a las escuelas charter?
But not CPS school students. How is the quality of education? Are the charter school teachers certified? Why don't they have to play by the same rules as district schools? I wasn't fortunate to have the experience my daughter had to graduate college and be the first in our family to cross that stage and receive a college diploma. Give all of our students the equal opportunity to live that great experience and reach that dream to be our future leaders. So I ask of you to please think closely of every decision you take and think of the results that you have, if you make that wrong decision.
¿Por qué el distrito escolar apoya a las escuelas charter pero no a escuelas públicas como nuestros estudiantes? ¿Cuál es la calidad de la educación? Las escuelas charter, ¿son los maestros de las escuelas charter certificados? ¿Por qué no deben que jugar por las mismas reglas que como las escuelas públicas? Yo no fui afortunada de tener la experiencia de que mi hija tuvo al graduarse del colegio y ser la primera en nuestra familia de atravesar el escenario y recibir un diploma de la universidad. Debemos dar a nuestros estudiantes la oportunidad igual de vivir esta experiencia y alcanzar sus sueños para transformarse en los líderes del futuro. Entonces les pregunto de que por favor piensen muy cercanamente en cada decisión que tomen y piensen en el resultado que va a tener si hacen la decisión errónea.
Thank you.
Gracias.
I want to present Lourdes Pineda, who is also one of our parent leaders here in our community.
Lourdes Pineda, una de nuestras líderes de padres aquí en nuestra comunidad.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Lourdes Pineda y formo parte del programa de Padres Mentores en Shields Middle School. Esta noche estamos aquí reunidos para hacer el conocimiento a nuestro alcalde Ram Emanuel que estamos en desacuerdo con él por la decisión que ha tomado en cerrar 50 de nuestras escuelas públicas CPS y los recortes de fondos por $100 millones o quizás más.
My name is Lourdes Pineda, and I form part of the program of mentor parents at Shields Middle School. Tonight, we're here together to bring conscience to our Mayor Rahm Emanuel, that we are in disaccord. We disagree with him for the decision that he has taken to close 50 schools on CPS, 50 CPS schools, and the cuts of the budget of $100 million or maybe more.
Nosotros como padres nos damos cuenta de la manera que han sido afectados nuestros hijos con estos recortes. Varios de sus programas que tenían fueron retirados. Material para sus mismos trabajos ya no se les provee. Escasez en los libros, que es lo más importante para la información en sus tareas. El señor alcalde Ram Emanuel dio la excusa que las escuelas que han sido cerradas es porque tienen pocos estudiantes y tienen bajo nivel académico.
We as parents notice the way that our children have been affected with these cuts. Many of the programs that were offered have been eliminated. Materials that allow them to do their job are not provided anymore. The cuts on books is the thing that is more important to get information for homework. Mr. Mayor Rahm Emanuel has given the excuse that the schools have been closed because they had little to no students and because they have no academic level.
Ahora nosotros queremos saber si las 31 escuelas charter que tiene ya programadas para abrir en 2 próximos años, si tiene los fondos suficientes y un nivel académico alto. Cualquiera de nosotros nos podemos imaginar que al invertir este capital tan grande es experimentar en algo desconocido. ¿Y por qué no usar este dinero en lo que ya se tiene? De cualquier manera, todo este dinero que se está utilizando es de los mismos impuestos de nuestras comunidades que día a día recaudan. ¿Y por qué no invertirlo en una educación para nuestros niños que son el futuro de este país? Una vez más, les exigimos que sea escuchada nuestra voz por aquellas personas o líderes que no les interesa la superación de nosotros los latinos. Gracias.
Now we want to know if the 31 charter schools that he has programmed to open in the next 2 years have the budget, enough budget, and an academic level, a satisfactory academic level that any of us could imagine to invest a capita so big. It is just experimenting in what is unknown. And why not use that money that we already have? One way or the other, that money that is being used is from taxes from our communities that day by day are being charged. And why not invest that money in a good education for our children, who are the future of our country? Again, we ask that our voice is heard, because those people or leaders that they do not care about this, about the success of us Latinos. Thank you.
Now I want to present Adrian Pedrazo, one of our youth student leaders from Kelly High School.
Adrián Pedrazo, uno de los líderes estudiantes de Kelly High School.
Hello everybody, my name is Adrian Pedraza. I attended Mushin College Prep, one of the Noble Inn charter schools. I went to their summer academy, and over the summer academy we had lots of brand new teachers from around the country, California, New York, elsewhere. And they made it easy. They didn't move along unless they knew you understood. They were good with you. They made it easy.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
What's the name of the school you went? Adrián Pedraza. Atendía la escuela Mission College Prep. Fue muy ligero, pasaba el tiempo contigo, era muy atendido al estudiante individualmente. Fue una experiencia muy buena.
Anyways, what happened afterwards was the school year eventually started. The teachers left. The ones that usually come in over the school year started. It was a big difference. It was not the same. The teachers treated you really different. More if you were just low, you were just there just to do work. They don't want no connection with you, nothing. They don't want to listen to your opinion, or hey, I have this different technique and it helps me learn better. Could we maybe try this? No, nothing.
Lo que pasó al principio del año escolar fue de que los maestros regulares empezaron a entrar, y en lugar de aquella bonita experiencia de antes, de que eran una educación muy individualista, fue muy general y fue como muy otorgada al trabajo y no a la educación. Se enfocaban mucho en hagan esto y ya, no era más por el amor a la educación, sino por un cheque.
After that, there was a few incidents with teachers. I tried, mostly it was with an algebra teacher. I was never really good, but over the summer academy, the teacher somehow made it easy for me. But over the year, teacher, as I said before, she would not go with it. If I had a different way to explain it and I still came up with the right answer, it was a problem. And when I kept on doing it, I told her I couldn't get it right. When I kept on doing it, she eventually gave me demerits, and those demerits lead to detentions, and each of those detentions cost $5.
Mediante el curso del año siguió, hubo más incidentes con profesores, especialmente la profesora de álgebra, que no me tenía paciencia, donde cuando fui a la academia durante el verano, hubo más de nuevo educación individual, donde me ayudaban en cada paso, pero durante el curso del año hubo mucha diferencia, donde no me apoyaban, no hacían nada por mi educación y me daban detention, que cada vez que agarraban el detention son $5.
After that kept on occurring, I asked for a parent-teacher conference. This problem kept on occurring, and every time the teacher would speak to my parent, they would act like a totally different person. They would act like, oh, it was my fault, I don't want to listen. And this happened more than once, and every time just different. Even the principal was very disrespectful. I tried calling from the school, letting them know that I was gonna have to stay 3 hours more from the school to my home. And the principal walked in the room asking, "Is that your mother?" And she told the teacher, "Grab the phone and hang it up. He's staying here, and he's gonna finish all of his work until it's all done."
Después de que esos incidentes siguieron pasando, exigí una conferencia con mis padres y los maestros y no fue posible. Y aún así el director de la escuela era muy irrespetuoso también, porque me tenía que quedar 3 horas después de la escuela, y cuando mi madre llamó para ver por qué fue eso, el director preguntó de que si esa era mi madre. Cuando le dijeron que sí, dijo: "Cuelga el teléfono, él se va a quedar aquí por las 3 horas.
After that, I kept on coming home. I was not happy. It was a big difference between the summer academy and the school year, and I just begged my mother, please get me out of this school.
Después de que todos esos incidentes siguieron ocurriendo, no era feliz y había una diferencia muy perpetua de la academia del verano y del transcurso del año escolar, y que llegué a decirle a mi madre que por favor sácame de esta escuela, no es para mí. Thank you. Gracias.
Now I want to present Mahalia, who is another youth leader.
Hello, I'm Mahalia Crawford. I attend Thomas Kelly High School. I'm a senior, and I'm with Vernon Park Neighborhood Council and Voice. A situation with me at a charter school. I went to Perspective Charter School, and I was a great student, making good grades, 4.0 GPA, great attendance. And one day, it was one of my friends. She had gotten into an altercation outside of school. It was a fight, and we have at Perspectives, they had these 80-year rules, or discipline life rules, where you have to like follow under these rules and help your friends if anything go wrong, or like take responsibility for your actions. So when she got into the fight, I tried to pull her out the fight so she wouldn't get in trouble.
Atendí a la escuela Perspective, estoy en mi último año escolar, tengo buenas calificaciones, un grade per average de 4.0, que es buenísimo. Congratulations. Y en esta escuela, en Perspective, tenemos una póliza de que cuando vemos que a uno de nuestros compañeros se está metiendo en problemas, tenemos que aconsejarles y asegurarnos de que ellos no se metan en problemas y traerlos al lado bueno, ¿verdad? Hubo un incidente donde una de mis compañeras se metió a una pelea y yo la estaba tratando de sacar.
And as I pulled out the fight, the next day at school, the principal and all the administration had found out about it. And they suspended whoever was standing around the fight. But not only, like, I wasn't just standing around the fight, I was helping her get out the fight so she wouldn't get in trouble. So we all wound up getting suspended from school, which caused me to slack on my work and my grades. So my 4.0 GPA went down. And I was very disappointed, so my mom came up to the school. So when she came up to the school, she tried to talk to the teachers and the principals to have a parent-teacher conference, but they just wasn't having it.
Cuando la estaba tratando de sacar de la pelea, la pudo sacar, pero el siguiente día, cuando todos los maestros se enteraron y toda la facultad se enteró, suspendieron a todos los que estaban envueltos en la pelea, no solamente a los que trataban de ayudar, sino a todos los que estaban parados alrededor. Cuando la suspendieron, su nivel de 4.0 bajó mucho porque no tenía tiempo de hacer el trabajo ni nada así. Cuando ella se enteró de eso, llamó a la facultad de la escuela para asegurarse de que hay una conferencia entre los padres y la facultad, y no lo querían tener.
And even after my mother tried to explain, trying to see like another possible solution to come up with, so I won't have to get suspended from school. It was like, no, she was around the fight, so she had to get suspended. Which caused my mother to say, no, my daughter is a very great student. They shouldn't be targeting these little students, so I'm pulling you out of this school.
Cuando mi mamá llegó a la escuela y tuvo la conferencia con ellos, aún que dijeron que no, ellos le seguían diciendo a ella de que ella estuvo en la pelea, de que estuvo involucrada, y la mamá le dijo que no, porque la educación que tiene, el nivel de académico que ella tiene, pero aún así no quisieron escuchar, entonces la madre optó por sacarla de la escuela a otra escuela.
And these charter schools, the charter school, it not only affected me, it affected others around me, because people look up to me as a leader. So as I went to my other school, it was different for me. I learned more and it was better, because at the charter school it was more of like discipline instead of work. And like this, like suspension, it affected me as a student, and it is on my record. So now, since I'm a senior in high school, I have to tell colleges and scholarships what happened. This is not, even though this is my story, this affects everyone, students and everyone, because it's like when these things happen, like we try to reach out to these communities and everyone, and like people just like not listen. The school did not listen, and it affected me and just everyone. Like these charter schools don't allow public schools and any other students to have a voice, so we should all have a voice and speak up. Thank you.
Okay, espérame que se me va. Digo que después de esos incidentes de que la sacaron y la pasaron de una escuela de charter a una escuela pública, fue cuando se dio cuenta de que el nivel de educación era completamente diferente. En la escuela charter se enfocan mucho en más de disciplina, en más de a ver quién se está saliendo de la línea en lugar de la educación. Cuando ahora que tiene esto en su récord, esta suspensión, y está tratando de aplicar a universidades, debe que explicar a esas becas, a esas universidades, cuál fue la situación de este evento donde ella no tuvo nada que ver. Y al cambio, si hubiera sido en esta escuela donde está ahora, como en el último grado, no hubiera pasado eso y sus grados hubieran estado todavía al nivel mayor. La gente la ve a ella como una líder, y eso no solamente la afecta a ella, sino a todos los que ella la ven como líder, y a todos los estudiantes ahora atendiendo a charter schools y a escuelas públicas. Se dice que gracias.
Now I want to present Mr. Yanez.
Señor Yañez.
Bueno, quisiera expandir un poquito de ese pleito. Un estudiante de una high school entra y tiene un pleito. Lo sacan de la escuela por ese pleito. Ahora tiene que buscar otra escuela. ¿Por qué? Porque varias de estas escuelas se están corriendo como un negocio. Ese negocio es para a ver a quién le voy a dar el mejor contrato, a mi mejor amiguito, tal vez, ¿verdad? Ahora una cosa, este joven que se peleó, ahora tiene que buscar una escuela, y va a ser una escuela pública, porque la escuela pública no le puede decir no al estudiante. ¿Qué pasa ahora? Que este estudiante está atrasado, tiene que luchar más para superar. ¿Qué pasa en nuestras comunidades? Que tenemos muchos jóvenes que terminan la escuela, la dejan. ¿Qué pasa con su futuro? El trabajo, el bienestar, su progreso. ¿Qué pasa con ese sueño americano? Se destruye al primer paso. Necesitamos unas escuelas que den oportunidades. I'm going to translate this really quick. I'm going to expand really quick on that scenario. A kid gets into a fight. He gets suspended, kicked out of that charter school. He has to find a home. Most likely it's going to be a public school. What happens with this student? He's behind. In our black and brown neighborhoods, the dropout rate, it's so high. What's going to happen to the future of this student? The future of this student gets impacted on the first step. So it seems like our priority that we're switching into a business, creating education into a business. And we're forgetting about the importance of bringing the resources to our educators, to our teachers. What about the local school council representation in charter schools? There's none. ¿Qué pasa con la representación del concilio local en las escuelas charters? No la hay. ¿Qué quiere decir eso? Que no necesitamos la voz del pueblo. What does that mean? That we don't count the voice of our village. That's disrespectful. My name is Dr. Rafael Yañez, an alumni from Jose Clemente Orozco and Benito Juárez. My name is Dr. Rafael Yañez, an alumni from Benito Juárez and Jose Clemente Orozco, a public school. Mi nombre es el Dr. Rafael Yañez, un estudiante de la escuela pública José Clemente Orozco y una escuela pública secundaria Benito Juárez. Hay que luchar.
Yes, that's right.
Now I want to present Jenny Biggs.
Anyway,
Thank you, Pablo. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. My name is Jenny Biggs, and I want to first thank all of the organizations that put this together for us tonight. I am a CPS parent of 3 children. I'm also a certified teacher. I taught for 7 years. I'm a board member of Raise Your Hand and also the Bridgeport Alliance, which are 2 grassroots organizations in the city.
hola, mi nombre es Jenny Biggs. Soy una madre de 3 estudiantes en las escuelas públicas de Chicago. Soy una maestra, he enseñado por 7 años. Soy parte de la mesa de Raise Your Hand y de la mesa de Bridgeport Alliance. Son 2 organizaciones y agradezco a todos por venir aquí y a todas las organizaciones que han hecho esto posible.
I was also a member of the McKinley Park Neighborhood Advisory Council, or NAC. Our NAC reviewed a charter proposal for a charter school called Be the Change, which was proposing to locate in Bridgeport, pretty close to a school that was on the initial list of possible school closings last year.
También soy un miembro de McKinley Park Neighborhood Association Council, o NAC. Cuando en NAC revisamos la propuesta de charter de hacer el cambio, proponiendo relocar en Bridgeport, muy cerca a otra escuela que era una de las que iban a cerrar el año pasado.
Our NAC voted unanimously to recommend that CPS deny this charter application. Ultimately, though, it's the Board of Education that makes the final decision on this charter proposal, as well as all the others that are up this year.
Nuestra organización votó unánimemente de que recomendáramos al sistema de escuelas públicas de que denegaran esa aplicación charter. Últimamente, de todas maneras, la decisión es de la Mesa Directiva de Educación. Entonces fue la decisión final de que la proposición charter, como todas otras.
So why are we here tonight? All of us, no matter what type of school we send our kids to, no matter where we live, no matter if we have kids or not, we want a strong system of resource public schools for all children.
¿Por qué estamos aquí hoy? No importa de qué tipo de escuela mandamos a nuestros hijos, no importa dónde vivimos, no importa si tenemos hijos o no. Queremos un sistema fuerte de recursos para nuestras escuelas, para todos los estudiantes.
We are also not here tonight to bash charter schools or charter school families or teachers. No individual parent created this system. We need district schools strengthened and we need systemic change. We need a system that educates all children. Tonight we will talk about how this proposed expansion of charters will impact the entire school system.
No estamos aquí tampoco para insultar a las escuelas charter o a las familias que van a escuelas charter. Ningún padre individualmente creó este sistema. Necesitamos un distrito de escuelas que sea más fuerte y un cambio sistemático. Ese sistema que eduque a todos nuestros hijos. Hoy vamos a hablar de cómo esta proposición de expansión de las escuelas charter va a impactar al sistema entero de escuela.
Next Wednesday, January 22nd, at the CPS Board of Ed meeting, the board will have 21 charter school proposals to approve or deny. As a side note, I'd just like to mention in the Austin neighborhood, they closed 4 schools last year, and they have 1 elementary charter school proposal, and the Noble High School proposal that's located across the street from Prosser will be recruiting out of Austin as well. And I just want to give a shout out to, raise your hand, board member Dwayne Truss, who has been organizing in Austin against this. Wait for the translation.
Ok, el próximo miércoles, enero 22, en el barrio de Austin van a cerrar 4 escuelas, cerraron 4 escuelas el año pasado. Esta es una propuesta de charter en Austin de una escuela elementaria y una Noble High School que quiere alocarse o ponerse al otro lado de la calle de Prosser High School, que va a reclutar de Austin. Me gustaría reconocer a Dwayne Truss, que ha sido uno de los organizadores en esto. Gracias, Dwayne.
All right, so these 21 schools will open in fall 2014 or fall 2015. The board had already approved 10 charter schools to open in fall 2014. So we are looking at potentially 31 new charter schools opening in the next 2 school years. So tonight we have an excellent panel of researchers here to talk about the impact of charter expansion on the whole district.
Estas 21 escuelas van a abrir al final del 2014 o al final del 2015. La mesa ya ha aprobado 10 charter schools, escuelas charter que abran al final de este año. Entonces estamos viendo a potencialmente 31 nuevas escuelas charter abriendo en los próximos 2 años. Esta noche tenemos un panel de excelentes escolares que van a hablar sobre el impacto sobre la expansión charter en nuestro distrito entero.
So our panelists include Dr. Federico Whiteholler, Dr. Stephanie Farmer, Dr. Jean Pierce, and Byron Sigcho. They are going to speak each for about 5 minutes. Then I'm going to come up and tell you about some very important action steps that we need to take, like starting tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And then we'll take some questions and answers if time allows.
Okay, después de que nuestros panelistas tengan su tiempo de hablar, 5 minutos cada uno, vamos a hablar sobre los pasos a seguir para acciones, como mañana a las 8 de la mañana. Y terminaremos todo con preguntas y respuestas que tengan ustedes y que podamos responder.
So first up tonight is Dr. Federico Whiteholler.
Buenas noches a todos. Lo que le voy a estar presentando hoy es una información acerca de una investigación que estamos haciendo con mi colega que está ahí atrás, Josh Radinsky. Good night, everybody. What we're going to be showing today is some data from a larger research project that we're currently conducting with my colleague Josh Radinsky. The project focused on access and enrollment of special education students across different schools in the city of Chicago, and also their placement in the least restrictive environment. La investigación de la que vamos a estar presentando se trata del acceso de estudiantes en la educación especial en todas las escuelas de Chicago, a través en todas los grupos raciales, discapacidades y también diferentes grados de escuelas. So the first graph that we have here, it's across from 2009 and 2013, the proportion of special education students in charter schools and neighborhood schools. So I'm going to try to make 4 points with my presentation. Point number one is that when we just look at the total enrollment of special education students in charter and neighborhood schools, we start seeing a trend that charter schools are actually catching up on the proportions compared to neighborhood schools, now pretty much at a very similar level when we just look at the entire special education population. Lo que estamos viendo acá es la información de 4 años y la comparación de los porcentajes entre escuelas charters y escuelas de barrio y los porcentajes de los alumnos con discapacidades que atienden esas escuelas. Now, this data can mask great disparities that we found when we look within diversity within special education. It's very interesting when we look at it, is that first of all what we see is that charter schools enroll disproportionately larger numbers of students with learning disabilities. These are students that tend to they tend to receive the less amount of support. Their instructional strategies are very similar to the instructional strategies that teachers use with other students that may not have disabilities but they struggle to learn. And the proportions are pretty large. These are, they're about lingering around 70% of the special ed population in charter schools, it's students with learning disabilities, while in neighborhood schools it's about, it's been diminishing like from 58% to now for 50%, so it's almost like a 20% difference. It's more interesting when you look at national trends, because learning disabilities at the national level compose only 38% of the special ed population. So actually, charter schools in Chicago almost have the double of proportion of learning disabilities, students with learning disabilities than the national average. Lo que estaba diciendo es que cuando miramos dentro del grupo de estudiantes en la educación especial, esos grupos son muy diversos y las diferencias entre los estudiantes son muy grandes. Cuando miramos a diferentes estudiantes con discapacidad, diferentes grupos, vemos que en las escuelas charter los estudiantes con discapacidad de aprendizaje componen el 70% de la población de su educación especial. Hay una diferencia del 20% con escuelas del barrio. Estos estudiantes generalmente no necesitan tanta educación intensiva y muchas de las pedagogías y de las técnicas instruccionales que se usan con estos estudiantes son bastante parecidas a otros estudiantes que capaz no tienen discapacidades, pero que sí tienen problemas de aprendizaje. We see similar trends with emotional disabilities, and if you click the next one, we see similar trends with other health impairments. Charter schools enroll significantly larger proportion of these disability categories. Again, these are what I consider mild disabilities or high incidence disabilities, and some of us call this subjective disabilities because they're not diagnosed by a doctor or psychiatrist, they're not visual, these are disabilities that are mostly diagnosed by psychometric testing in schools. No, go back to that one, please. Lo que vemos entonces es que las escuelas charter todavía en las discapacidades que se llaman de alta incidencia o más leves tienen más proporción de estudiantes en esas discapacidades. Ahora, cuando nos movemos a ver las discapacidades que son más severas, we see significant discrepancies on the other way. Neighborhood schools enroll significantly larger enrollments of students with intellectual disabilities. You can put the whole slide. with autism and with sensory impairment. In sensory impairments here, we aggregated the data of students who are blind, students who are deaf, students who are blind and deaf, and students who have hearing difficulties. And with other health impairments. Now, other health impairments is a very interesting category to me because it usually used to be the other category where we put all the groups that didn't fit the other categories. Now, in the 90s, one disability category became very popular, and we didn't, at a policy level, we didn't know where to put it, and we put it there, and it's ADHD. So the large majority of students in other health impairment are ADHD students. So lo que estaba diciendo es que las escuelas de barrio tienen más proporciones de estudiantes con discapacidades más severas, de estudiantes con discapacidades intelectuales, estudiantes con autismo, estudiantes con discapacidades más severas como traumatic brain injury, multiple disabilities. Y lo que es muy interesante de esto es que estas discapacidades son más, forgive the code switching, son más caras. I mean, these disabilities categories, they need more money to support these disability categories. You need more support, you need more specialized teachers. Sometimes you need a separate classroom with assistive technology. That the first group of disabilities that I show you, that are mostly disproportionately larger enrollments in charter schools, they do not, they need those levels of support. El tercer punto que quiero hacer, can you move to the next slide?
About 4 more minutes.
I'm doing great. I guess it's by third. It's the racial composition. Charter schools, this is just special education. Charter schools enroll significantly proportions African American students, when the difference is almost of 20%. That's a huge difference. Well, the other interesting trend that we're finding is that charter schools enroll significantly higher proportions of African American students in special education, and lower proportions of whites and lower proportions of Latinos compared to neighborhood schools. El otro patrón de conducta que es bastante interesante que encontramos es que las escuelas charter tienen mayores proporciones de estudiantes afroamericanos en la educación especial y menos proporción de latinos y menos proporción de estudiantes blancos. Y el último punto que quiero compartir con ustedes es cuando ponen a los estudiantes en lo que llamamos the least restrictive environment, en el ambiente educacional menos restrictivo. Muchas gracias. Y lo que vemos es que las escuelas charter tienden a poner muchas más proporción de estudiantes en los ambientes educacionales menos restrictivos. Lo azul indica que los estudiantes están en el salón general por más del 80%. Lo verde entre el 49 y el 79, lo rojo en el 40 y lo violeta sería que casi están en un aula separada. Y esto pasa en todas las categorías. So what I was saying is that charter schools tend to serve students at larger proportions in less restrictive environments than neighborhood schools do. This is very interesting. These are across disability categories. Here you have a sample. The blue indicates students who are for more than 80% in the general education classroom, the green 40 to 79, the red 40%, less than 40%, and then the last one that is almost invisible is the self-contained classroom. Now this is interesting for those two reasons. We can interpret this data with two reasons, in two ways. One is that charter schools are very, very good about including students with disabilities in the general education classroom. Two, the other hypothesis is that they don't have the resources to serve these students, so they're just placed in the general education classroom with no support. Now, in my professional experience and expertise, when I see the prior research on special education students in charter schools, what we see is that continuously charter administrators are complaining that they don't know what to do with students with disabilities, that they don't have the support, they don't have the budget, they don't understand the policy. So when we put those pieces of data together, I'm more inclined to think that there are having larger proportions of students with disabilities in the least restrictive environment because they are not able to provide the intensive support that those students may need. Para terminar, estaba diciendo que hay dos hipótesis que podemos pensar mirando esta data. Una es que las escuelas charter son muy buenas incluyendo estudiantes con discapacidades en los salones generales. La otra hipótesis es que como no tienen los servicios intensivos que estos estudiantes podrían necesitar, los ponen directamente en el salón general, sin ningún tipo de soporte y sin ningún tipo de tecnología asistiva. En mi opinión profesional y mirando las investigaciones que se han hecho a nivel nacional, no solamente en Chicago, sabemos que todas las charters, las escuelas charter, tienen muchas dificultades sirviendo a estos estudiantes, muchas dificultades teniendo el presupuesto para servir a los estudiantes con los niveles de intensidad que necesitan y muchos administradores han decidido que no saben qué hacer con estos estudiantes y que no entienden sus responsabilidades en torno a las políticas educacionales de educación especial. Entonces yo estoy más inclinado a pensar que es porque los estudiantes con discapacidades en las escuelas charters no tienen los soportes, directamente los ponen en el salón general con poquito soporte con los demás chicos que están en el salón general. That's it. Thank you very much and I want to thank you for here. Quiero agradecer por invitarme.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Farmer. I'm a professor of sociology at Roosevelt University. And I was asked to just give you guys a general understanding of the relationship between charter schools and CPS budget.
Soy una profesora de sociología en la escuela Roosevelt University, en la Universidad de Roosevelt, y nada más vine aquí para darles una vista general de la relación del presupuesto y las escuelas charter.
So if you notice over the last 4 years, since 2010 to 2013, what we've seen is that CPS's budget has been held constant at around $5 billion. However, what this doesn't factor in is rising costs, like maybe due to inflation, due to health care costs, and also due to the expansion of charter schools, is what I'll get to in just a moment.
Lo que esta gráfica, esta tabla nos muestra es de que en los últimos 4 años el presupuesto para las escuelas se ha mantenido a la misma tasa, ¿verdad? Alrededor de $5 millones, $1,000 millones, donde se ha proporcionado a las escuelas públicas. Lo que eso no nos muestra es el costo que ha sido incrementado, ya sea por inflación, por factores X, de que tendría que el presupuesto estar más alto por el costo alto de todas las cosas que las escuelas necesitan.
One of the things that we see is that we've seen budget cuts as well as closings of the schools. First off, people are estimating that the cuts that CPS has made to their budgets in the 2013 to 2014 school year is costing about $100 million. CPS estimated that they were saving $155 million by closing the 50 schools. So altogether, we've seen about $255 million less going to CPS neighborhood schools in this current school year.
Entonces, lo que hemos visto es de que muchos hicieron asunciones o sugerencias de que al cerrar las escuelas se iban a ahorrar $155 millones. Lo que hemos visto es de que el presupuesto de las escuelas ha perdido $100 mil Lo que hemos visto es que si añadimos esos dos, el sistema de educación ha perdido más de $255 millones.
Not all CPS schools have experienced a budget cut, though. What we have seen is the private schools. Majority of the alternative schools are private schools. Only 2 in the CPS system are actually public, and the rest are private. And then, of course, charter schools have also seen their budgets expand. This study is coming from Catalyst, and they determined that even though charter schools are only anticipating a 10% increase in their student population, they're getting 12% more in their budget. Alternatively, if you look at neighborhood high schools, like what we consider traditional CPS public schools, even though they're only expected to lose about 2% of their student population, they're expected to have about 14% less in their budgets in this current year.
Entonces, lo que esta gráfica muestra, las barras negras muestran el tipo de estudiantes que van a tener. Las barras grises muestran el presupuesto que van a tener. Vemos que las escuelas alternativas, que en la mayoría son privadas, y las escuelas charter van a tener un incremento más alto en el presupuesto y no van a tener los mismos estudiantes. Cuando vemos en las escuelas de comunidad, neighborhood high schools como estas de aquí, vemos de que aunque van a perder 2% de población a las escuelas, van a perder 14% de su presupuesto en total. Y lo mismo va a las escuelas elementales, van a perder 3% de su presupuesto y 5% en las escuelas macro.
So, what can we conclude by this is that while the neighborhood schools are losing $255 million, we've seen, what we're seeing is an expansion in the charter school budget. So what basically the trends that we're seeing here is that we're seeing a rollback, or the cuts happening to the neighborhood schools, while the semi-private, quasi-private, however you want to explain it, charter schools are actually getting more of the tax dollars.
Entonces es muy claro, ¿verdad?, de que las escuelas de la comunidad están perdiendo más de 250 millones de dólares, cuando las escuelas semiprivadas y privadas están incrementando sus presupuestos. Cuando los cortos eran para ahorrar dinero, estamos actualmente perdiendo.
So the expansion in charter school budgets isn't just happening this year, of course. It's been a long-term trend. Actually, basically charter schools are funded on the public dime. There's this misconception that charter schools are just fully private, or that there's not much of a relationship between the public and charter schools. But it is the case that 75% of charter schools' budgets will come directly from the CPS budget. However, the public is also funding other ways in which charters are funded. For instance, 33 charters in the CPS system have $1 leases to lease their buildings. That's pretty significant too, right? So when you take that 75%, you have to add on all the other ways in which CPS funds charter schools' operations, and also like their access to buildings. Another way in which you could see charter schools being funded on the public dime is all the in-kind services that CPS provides. I'm gonna let you translate, and then I'll get to the data points.
Okay. Entonces estamos viendo de que hay una buena clara demostración de que las escuelas charter no han experimentado un incremento de su presupuesto desde 2010 hasta ahora. Lo que hay una concepción equivocada es de que las escuelas charter son fundadas por el peso del público, por los impuestos. 75% de su presupuesto viene de las escuelas públicas, que es de los impuestos, ¿verdad? Entonces, pero también si añadimos otras formas de que las escuelas charter y semiprivadas están haciendo cosas, es de que pagan renta de $1 en algunos de los edificios donde están, tienen algunos otros medios donde ahorran muchísimo dinero del que no nos damos cuenta, y aún así se están aprovechando de agarrando más el presupuesto de las escuelas públicas.
So these are some of the ways in which charter schools are also funded that aren't necessarily included in this, what we see directly coming out of the CPS general operation funds. But you have in-kind donations, we have student fees, and student fees in charter schools tend to be much higher than what the student fees that we see in CPS traditional public schools. Charter schools also get more private funding, donations, but they also get state and federal grants. For instance, in 2009, I'm sure you guys all heard this one, where UNO charter schools received $98 million from the state. That's approximately the same amount of money that CPS received for the state for its capital projects for all 600 of its schools.
Okay. Okay. Entonces, el punto que queremos hacer es de que esas son otras de las maneras de que las escuelas charter están recibiendo dinero, de donaciones in-kind, de las multas de los estudiantes, que son considerablemente más mayores que las escuelas públicas, de donaciones privadas y de otros fondos públicos. Por ejemplo, está contando una historia que en el 2009 las escuelas 1 recibieron
98 million.
98 millones de dólares del presupuesto estatal, que es igual a lo que las escuelas públicas de Chicago reciben para todas las 600 escuelas públicas que tienen.
Charter schools also have costs that traditional public schools do not have. For instance, one of the things that charter schools have in addition, or what you could say is extra, is management fee. Part of these management fees also includes hiring consultants to go out door knocking, try to encourage people into the charter. Another kind of expense that we see within the charter school system is that they duplicate administrative offices. So those two come out of the classroom and just out of, go from take money from the classroom and just put it in administrative costs. So UNO's former president, our CEO, Juan Rangel, he made over $260,000. That's about equivalent of what CPS's CEO, Barbara Berg-Bennett, makes. We have multiple charter school CEOs that make $250,000. So instead of just having one person making $250,000, we have multiple people. And again, that's the money that's being taken out of the classroom and basically put in these people's bank accounts.
Básicamente, estamos viendo de que las escuelas charter tienen más cosas que pagar que las escuelas tradicionales de la comunidad. Tienen una cosa que se llama multas de mantenimiento, donde en ese campo de cosas de dinero que deben que gastar, reclutan a personas de que vayan a tocar puertas para reclutar a la gente que venga a las escuelas charter. También estamos viendo de que recientemente Juan Rangel, el CEO de las escuelas 1, recibió más de $260,000 como su paga, que es muy similar a lo que Barbara Bennett de las escuelas públicas de Chicago recibe. Y hay muchísimos presidentes o administradores de las escuelas charter que reciben $250,000. Entonces lo que estamos viendo es de que todo, no solamente es una persona, sino son muchas personas que reciben más de $250,000, y estamos viendo de que están tomando ese dinero de los salones para gastarlo en cosas que no son necesarias y poniéndolo en el bolsillo de ciertas personas hasta arriba.
Thank you all for coming out and actually caring about this issue.
Gracias a todos.
I'm Jean Pierce, a retired professor of educational psychology from Northern Illinois University. What? Is that your slide? Yes. Okay. I started this investigation by trying to find charters that seemed to be succeeding, and then looking at neighborhood traditional public schools to see how they compared with them.
Soy una maestra retirada de Northern Illinois University, Universidad del Norte de Illinois. Empecé esta investigación para ver cómo las escuelas charter estaban poniendo su granito de arena y cómo se comparaban con las escuelas públicas de Chicago.
So we're all familiar with the traditional reasons that are given for preferring charter schools. I want to focus particularly on this third one, equity. It hasn't gotten much support across the nation, and research has been done, but I wanted to see, were the charter schools in Chicago promoting equity for kids?
Hay tres cosas de las que me concentré en esta investigación, pero la que me quiero enfocar esta vez es en la palabra igualdad, que muchas de las veces no vemos, no otorgamos mucha atención a esa palabra, y vamos a ver cómo se comparan las escuelas de charter en Illinois y a través del país.
Okay, so I started with over 120 charter school campuses plus contract schools in Chicago. I also started with the findings of a recent Credo study out of Stanford University that found that 80% of charter students in Illinois were actually not performing any better, and in some cases worse, than kids in traditional public schools in reading growth, and the comparable figures for math. About 2/3 of the kids in charter schools in Illinois are performing no better, and in some cases worse, than kids in traditional public schools in math growth.
Entonces, en la investigación empecé con 120 escuelas charter o escuelas de contrato en Chicago. Y también agarré un reporte de la Universidad de Stanford de que 2/3 o 80% de los estudiantes en las escuelas charter hacen considerablemente más bajo nivel de educación que en las escuelas públicas o en las escuelas comunitarias. Como vemos que casi 2/3 de la población de todas las escuelas charter están haciendo, no tienen un nivel académico como el de las escuelas públicas.
So, what I started, maybe arbitrarily, trying to identify which were the succeeding charter schools, I looked at those with at least 50% of their students meeting or exceeding standards, okay? This was the list in Chicago. Now, I want to point out two schools that are noticeably absent. This one. Hello? Click it, please. Okay. Chicago Math and Science, which is operated by Concepts. Both of these schools, by the way, are related to schools that are being proposed in this series of 21 that are up for consideration right now. So Chicago Math and Science did not meet the 50% cutoff mark. Concept, there are a number of problems you may have heard with, some testing irregularities, some questions about faith-based curriculum, questions about why so many Turkish teachers need to come over here to teach math and science. And then Inside School did not make the list simply because, and you can cross that one off too, there we go, because the one that we have currently only started in September, so we don't have any kind of track record, and they want to open another one. I also ignored, right, Aspira because of alleged testing irregularities, Noble Street because of selective retention, and you heard from Adrian how that played out, and UNO for reasons that you'll hear from Byron. So, and then I chose the top performing of the others.
Ok, estas son las escuelas que eligió que al 50% de las escuelas que están al nivel o están excediendo los estándares educativos. Entonces, estaba con esas escuelas, entonces está notando de que dos no están en esa lista. La razón por la que no están son la Escuela de Ciencias y Matemáticas de Chicago y la Escuela Insight, que no pudieron llegar a esa marca de los estándares o excederla. Y también empezamos a hacer cruces en las escuelas de Aspire, las escuelas Noble y las escuelas 1, que después Byron nos va a explicar por qué es la razón.
Okay, so this is the percent that met or exceeded state standards. Recognize that blue is charter, red is neighborhood. So just to get an idea of what's happening, in this case the charter school was somewhat lower than the traditional public. In this case they were similar. And here the charter seemed to be performing better, and here the charter seemed to be performing much better. Keep an eye on what happens to the blue and red lines as we go to other factors that may be affecting this performance. Next one. Oops, sorry.
Entonces estamos viendo aquí los estándares de las escuelas y vemos de que los rojos son escuelas comunitarias y los azules son escuelas charter. Y estamos viendo cómo están progresando mediante todos estos de aquí abajo y mantengan en mente cómo se están moviendo mientras la gráfica que ahorita nos va a mostrar otra slide.
Okay, so here we have mobility. Now, for instance, Faraday School, 75% mobility. This means it's a revolving door. The students are coming and going. The tests are measuring what the students learned the previous year from other teachers in another school. And this is true more so for traditional public schools than for the charter schools. Much more mobility affecting the testing in traditional publics.
Entonces estamos viendo de que aquí hay muchos estudiantes que vienen de otras escuelas que se están moviendo de escuela a escuela y estamos viendo que el porcentaje es más alto en las escuelas de comunidad que en las escuelas charter porque están viniendo de otra escuela a escuela o están afectando ese movimiento de escuelas entrando a salir, está afectando los exámenes.
Similar story for low income. We have much more low income for the charters, particularly the ones that are apparently the traditional publics, particularly the ones that seem to be underperforming the charters.
Lo mismo pasa con las escuelas que están aceptando personas de bajos recursos. Estamos viendo de que las escuelas de comunidad tienen más estudiantes de este tipo que las escuelas charter.
And it's particularly useful to look at the intersection between low income and mobility is homelessness with intense problems of health care and that's affecting these people.
Es muy interesante ver de que cuando combinamos a personas de bajos recursos con las personas que se mueven de lado a lado, de escuela a escuela, estamos viendo a las personas que sin hogar.
Okay, so here when we look at homeless children, we find once again the traditional public schools are outperforming, if you will, the charter schools. There's more. So
Lo que estamos viendo es de que los estudiantes que no tienen hogar están yendo a las escuelas comunitarias que las escuelas charter.
okay, next. Okay, so basically the conclusion is that at a time when the state is seriously underfunding public education, there does not appear to be a convincing reason to give preferential treatment to charters. That's right.
Entonces es evidente que cuando el Estado le está cortando mucho dinero a todas las escuelas, los recursos que tenemos, no hay una razón que nos convenza de que hay que mantener en prioridad a las escuelas charter.
Good evening, everyone. Buenas noches. It's great to be here tonight. It's great to be here tonight with a large group of students. Often we talk about students all the time, but rarely we see the voice of the students in these policies. So thank you. Where are the students? Where are the students in the room? It's great to have the parents in the room. So I know there's a larger group of parents, and that's what we need. We need more parents. So thank you for being here. Thank you, all the parents. And last but not least, I'd like to thank you to all the educators, too. Educators, administrators, all of us, all the people who make education what we should be. And not this facade, not this type of, whatever they want to call this reform, quote unquote. So what I would like to talk to you about is really a team of research that put together a case study. So what I want to talk to you about is about a case study. Hoy voy a hablar acerca de un caso que estudiamos en la universidad. Soy investigador en la Universidad de Illinois y quisiera ver cómo vamos a poner una cara, vamos a poner el rostro a los números. So we're going to start putting faces to the numbers, to what they look like. So we're going to talk about a case study of what the corporate education reform looks like. And I know some of you perhaps have seen in the news about the UNO scandal, whatever you call it. So muchos de nosotros aquí en la comunidad seguro estamos familiarizados con el caso de UNO, de la operadora UNO. Entonces quisiera comenzar con eso, con este caso. Muchos de nosotros sabemos acerca de este charter operator, este operador de charter. 98% de los estudiantes son de origen latino, como yo, como muchos de nosotros aquí en el salón. Pero muchas veces nos preguntamos cómo en muchas comunidades se puede obtener un grupo demográfico de 98%. Es interesante la pregunta. So we often think, when we think is now we start thinking about charter operators are exclusively Hispanic operators, Latino operators, 98% Hispanic enrollment. So we ought to think how in some neighborhoods where the demographics don't reflect that, how did that happen? Recently we heard some officials even admitting that the lottery was not such a lottery, that there was actually pointing fingers to get people inside, and certain people were getting inside. So, lo que llamaban lotería, la lotería que como entraban a estas escuelas, resulta que de acuerdo a algunos administradores de UNO, no era como tal, no era una lotería, sino que había favoritismo, había nepotismo dentro de esa. Y hay que llamar las cosas como son. however, have received and they have been favorited by a Board of Education that is full of corporate players, and a mayor who is in fact being advised by the same, and it's been pointed out, these corporate players. There are no parents, none of us, non-educators in that Board of Education, none of us are making these decisions. But this charter operator received tons of public funding for their friends, for their buddies, but definitely not for the classrooms, not for the schools. So that's just a background, just to start with. So mucho de este dinero público nunca llegó a las escuelas, nunca llegó a los niños, nunca llegó a los jóvenes. Vamos a ver dónde llegó. I think the Sun-Times have done a great job covering where the money went. $30 million approximately went to buddies and close friends and family members. I think the chart is very telling. We've seen, a lot of the UNA schools with tons of windows. Well, guess why they had a lot of windows, right? Well, the number 2 organization was selling the windows to these people, right? All with public money. So, cuando nos preguntamos por qué las escuelas de uno se ven tan bonitas y tienen muchas ventanas, resulta que el número 2 de la organización, que ahora de paso está tratando de recuperar su trabajo, era quien vendía las ventanas, ¿sí? Aproximadamente un par de millones de dólares en contratos, ¿sí? Now the same guy now is trying to get his job back, by the way. All playing with public money. All of these guys think that this is some sort of gamble, some kind of game. So we can go to the next one. So this is, if you talk about a serious reform, we gotta talk about what we're really doing here. The financial bubble is very telling. I think if we all have talked about the housing bubble, what happened after the bubble burst, I think that's what we're seeing in schools now. We have the casualties already in our neighborhoods. 50 schools being closed, budget cuts, layoffs. We're already seeing in our communities. But it's all being orchestrated, it's all being approved, it's all being known. These are all news. Since 2008, the UNA has been bailed out. Since 2008, they have received bailout by public officials. They have received public money, even though they run deficits, and they knew that there were nepotism in those schools.
Which public officials?
Well, we'll talk about that in a second.
Right.
Yeah, that's right, because we gotta put names, and we gotta put figures. We started putting names to who is behind this reform. Right? So it's important that we understand que aquí no hay ninguna reforma. Lo que hay aquí hay un esquema financiero donde hay personas que se están beneficiando, hay corporaciones, hay políticos que están detrás de todo esto. Y vamos a poner cara a los números. Desde el 2008 estas escuelas han sido salvadas, y incluso cuando han tenido déficits, cuando han malgastado dinero público, cuando han sabido que hay nepotismo dentro de esas escuelas, han recibido más dinero público. Con la complicidad del Consejo Educativo y el alcalde. By the way, the CEO of UNO was the mayor campaign manager. So what happened with the money? The money never reaches the schools. If you see, large charter operators tend to spend very little in education. Very little. Only 45%, 45 cents of every dollar of UNO goes towards the classroom, goes towards education. Most of the money, where it goes? For political campaigns, for administrative fees, for investors' fees. And not behind that is Noble Street. So we're talking about charter operators. The deficits are transferred to the students. Los déficits son transmitidos a los estudiantes. El dinero nunca llega a las aulas. El dinero se queda en campañas políticas, el dinero se queda con los salarios altos que tienen estas autoridades, y se queda con los inversionistas que a la final se pueden quedar hasta con las escuelas. We can go to next. So there's a scheme where UNO claims that there's a charter operator, but there's a political organization. And when it comes down to be accountable, they decide to be private. But when it's time to give information, they decide, well, we know if we're public, we don't know if we're private. So, but there's tons of money going to housing projects, tons of money going to janitorial businesses. Very little money reaches the classrooms. We can go to the next one. There are the faces. You want to see the faces? I'll show you the faces. Si quieren ver las caras de nuestros oficiales, ¿quién está detrás de todo esto? Dinero a campañas políticas. Money going to our political campaigns. Political campaigns that are later supported for legislators that will pass laws that will benefit them. There's no reform in this kind of model. There's political clout and profit. Aquí no hay ninguna reforma. Aquí lo que hay es influencia política, y aquí hay dinero de por medio. En campañas políticas, y los jugadores son los mismos. The players are the same. We talk about concept schools, we got the same people behind all these operators. Speaker Madigan making tons of trips to Turkey, but we, however, in our schools, we cannot even, even in our schools, 98% teen enrollment, even Spanish is banned in some of those schools. But we want Turkish schools, Turkish religious groups running our schools. So it's enough of this chaos, this dysfunctional. Estas políticas son disfuncionales, estas políticas han creado caos en nuestras escuelas y es hora de poner orden. It's time to put order in our schools. So what do we want? So we can pass these ones. We already showed that they're educators. We have a lot of kids who want to save the world, a lot of TFA, a lot of people who come and train in our neighborhoods to be teachers. Only very few of them. Only 15% have more than 5 years experience in those schools. We don't have teachers. This money is not reaching our classrooms. We gotta stop this. So what we want, and I finish with that, what we want is collaboration. We want a competition. We want personalization. We don't want overcrowded classrooms because that's what they're creating here. When the schools close, that's what creates. That's what is creating in our communities. We don't want test-based accountability. What we want is trust-based responsibility. And our educators know what to do. Our educators know what is done, and our parents know what is best for the children. So nosotros no queremos más test que van a culpar a nuestros niños. Queremos educadores, realmente educadores que se ocupen de nuestras clases. Nuestros padres queremos ser parte de eso. About school choice, what we have is inequity, huge inequity. Now what we have is schools having PE and art classes online. That's what we have now in our south side. Now, lo que nosotros tenemos en el sur ahora son clases de arte y de educación física en línea. Ni siquiera nos pueden dar por el presupuesto, ni siquiera verdaderas clases, because the budget is cut. So it's important that we want equity, but in the north side, we have schools who have millions of dollars of increases. And we actually have a person who's running for governor who was actually begging for his daughter, Bruce Browner, who was begging for her daughter to go to public schools. So we know what public schools, so stop pushing public schools. We know that public schools can work, but we gotta make them work. And charter schools are just reducing costs for benefit of few. Finally, what we want and ultimately what is this reform is about is privatizing our public or education here in our neighborhoods. And what we want is education as a human right. Every child has a right for a quality education. Lo que queremos es educación como derecho para todos nuestros niños. Todos podemos tener una buena escuela en nuestro barrio. We don't want education como una industria. Thank you.
Okay, so in front of you, I hope that all of you have an action step half sheet in front of you. Did everybody get that? It's either orange or white. Okay. Before we talk about the action steps, let's just kind of refocus here. And I'm going to give you some insight from being on the NAC, or the Neighborhood Advisory Council.
Bueno, primero queremos ver de que todos tengan la mitad de la hoja que es un poquito rosada, naranja. A ver, dámela. Ok, antes de que vayamos a eso, les voy a explicar un poquito más, lo vamos a reenfocar y nos va a hablar un poquito más de NAC.
When CPS put out their request for proposals for new schools, they specifically asked for charter schools. Their argument was they wanted to alleviate overcrowding. So they itemized priority communities, like McKinley Park is a priority community, although if you look at the map, which you can see this at the CPS site, McKinley Park is McKinley Park, Brighton Park, back to the R's, it's huge. And then the McKinley Park NAC was actually reviewing a charter proposal to actually technically be located in Bridgeport. So that is not going to relieve anyone's overcrowding, I can tell you that for sure.
Entonces cuando empezó esta idea de las charters, empezó porque querían reducir la sobrepoblación en las escuelas, y están enfocándose en áreas que decía de prioridad, como es McKinley, McKinley Park, pero estamos viendo de que McKinley Park querían mover a todos esos a Bridgeport, que no alivia para nada la sobrepoblación, sino incrementa.
So next Wednesday, the board is looking at 21 charter proposals. Only 5 of these, correct, were reviewed by the NAC? 5 total? So that means there were only 5 that they might be able to argue might alleviate some overcrowding, but I'm telling you 1 for sure isn't. So I'm telling you that pretty confident many of these charter proposals aren't going to do what CPS is arguing that they're going to do, or why they are calling for these new schools.
El próximo miércoles la mesa va a revisar 25 proposiciones para abrir nuevas escuelas, de las cuales solo 5 fueron revisadas por NAC. Entonces ella está diciendo con mucha confidencia de que estas proposiciones para abrir nuevas escuelas charter no van a hacer nada para aliviar la sobrepoblación.
So 21 charter schools next Wednesday, 10 already approved. So we're looking at 31 over the next 2 years. We haven't heard the term $1 billion deficit in a while, but it's coming back because CPS next year is projected to have a $914 million deficit. So if we all lost money this year to our school budgets and we also, or CPS closed 50 schools and we took a hit, what's going to happen when we have still $1 billion deficit and they want to open 31 schools on top of that? I mean, this is impacting every school. Charter schools, you too.
Entonces ya han abierto 10 escuelas charter. Ahora el miércoles van a estar la proposición de 21 más a escuelas charter. No hemos escuchado los términos de una deuda externa de un mil millón. Suena raro, ¿no? $1,000 millones de deuda externa, pero ya viene de nuevo. Las escuelas públicas de Chicago tienen proyecciones de estar en una deuda externa de ya casi 999, ya casi al millón, $1,000 millones. Entonces, imagínense tener esa deuda externa y sobre eso querer abrir 31 nuevas escuelas y mantener los presupuestos de las escuelas de barrio. No.
One more thing and then we'll talk about the action steps. The Albany Park Neighborhood Council did some research and they determined that it is going to cost $225 million in taxpayer money over the next 10 years if CPS opts to open all these new schools. Where's that money coming from?
Un nuevo estudio ha dicho de que los $225 millones de dólares van a ser necesarios para abrir todas esas escuelas. ¿De dónde está viniendo ese dinero?
All right, so if you're worried about this potential expansion, we need to do something and we need to start in 12 hours from now, 8 o'clock a.m. First thing, number 1, tomorrow is board vote call-in day Wednesday. So in front of you, it should give you some instructions on who we would like you to call. We would like you to call President David Vitale of the Board of Education. His phone number is on that sheet, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. We'd like you to call Mayor Rahm Emanuel. His phone number is on that sheet, correct? Yes, and we would like you to call your alderman. That's something we don't have. Is anyone Alderman Balser?
No, or Cardenas.
Cardenas. Does anybody have Cardenas's number right now?
Shout it out. What's the phone number?
Enfrente de ustedes, mañana tenemos que empezar a hacer llamadas para que esta expansión no suceda. Ya hemos estado aquí muchísimo tiempo escuchando de nuevo de que esto es malo y ya sabemos que nos está afectando. Mañana en la mañana queremos que llamen a David Vitale, al alcalde de la ciudad, Rahm Emanuel, y a su representante de la ciudad. Estas llamadas son esenciales para que haya un cambio.
Here's Alderman Cardenas' phone number. Are you ready? 773-523-8250. Bert, hold on.
Ok, el teléfono para al representante Cárdenas, 773-523-8250. 773-523-8250.
Okay, who can make these 3 phone calls tomorrow? Please raise your hand.
¿Quién puede hacer las llamadas mañana? ¿Todos pueden?
All right. All right, here's Alderman Burke. Are you ready? Alderman Burke, 773-471-2299.
Aquí para el representante Burke, 773-471-2299. 773-471-2299.
And here's Balser, just in case you need it, 773-254-6677.
Representante Balser, 773-254-6677.
All right, one more thing I need you to do tomorrow when you call your alderman, and this is why I need you to call him or her at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, or 9 o'clock when they open. Tomorrow is a city council meeting, which starts at 10 o'clock, right? Alderman Spassato has a resolution against the charter expansion. So we need to call the aldermen tomorrow and ask them to please sign on to this. You got that? Who is going to do that when they call their alderman tomorrow? Raise your hand. All right. Excellent. Okay. Oops, sorry.
Okay. La razón por la que queremos que llamen mañana cuando abren las oficinas de sus representantes es porque el representante Esposado tiene una resolución que va a bloquear la expansión de escuelas charter. Entonces, esta es como la oportunidad que tenemos para que ustedes llamen a sus representantes y les digan que apoyen la proposición del representante Esposado para que no expandan las escuelas charter. ¿Quién lo va a hacer?
Just calling their alderman and talk about city council resolution. Thank you. Okay, I have one more key action and I have to speak quickly, so please pay attention. This one is really important because this one's kind of creepy. You ready? The state has something called the Illinois State Charter Commission, and it is an appointed board. Most of them are charter advocates, and they can technically override a local decision that says no to a charter school. That's how Concept in McKinley Park and the Concept on the north side this year came to be. CPS said no, they went to the commission said yes, and they were able to open a school.
Hay una mesa estatal de gente que no fueron elegidas, sino que fueron impuestas por alguien. Y esa mesa estatal lo que hace es que pueden bloquear, o sea que si nosotros decimos de que no a una escuela charter, ellos pueden decir, ¿cómo que no? Lo ponemos.
So what we need to do, in addition to calling all those other people, is we need to talk to our state senators and state representatives to get this state commission gone. There is actually a bill in the House and in the Senate, sponsored by Shapa Levia in the House and Kim Lightford in the Senate, that would give the power to override or any type of power back to ISB, the Illinois State Board of Education, as opposed to the State Charter Commission.
Entonces, lo que mañana queremos que hagan también es que llamen a sus representantes estatales para decirles de que apoyen las resoluciones en la Cámara Baja y en la Cámara Alta del Congreso Estatal, para decirles de que manden el poder otra vez al Departamento de Educación Estatal y no a esta comisión que es la que dice que se van a poner charter schools porque sí, porque sí, porque sí. Queremos de que el poder regrese otra vez al Estado y no a esta comisión que quién sabe quién los eligió.
We need our reps and our senators to sign on to this bill. Who can commit to get a meeting with a group of people to go see your representative and your senator?
Tenemos que asegurarnos de que nuestros representantes sepan nuestras preocupaciones y que apoyen estas resoluciones. ¿Quién estaría dispuesto a atender a una junta que vamos a tener con los representantes de su distrito? Por favor, alce la mano.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right, so I guess we have some time for a few questions.
We have time for like 2 questions.
Oh, we have time for 2 questions. There are in the back, if you look in the back, there's clipboards with blue sheets. If you are interested in getting together with a group to go see a representative or senator, you can put your information there and we'll put groups together based on the senator or representative.
Tenemos tiempo para 2 preguntas, pero también para a ustedes de que quieren ir a estas juntas y decirles en la cara de que lo que quieren. Allá están las listas azules que tienen atrás. Por favor, vayan a poner su información y nos comunicaremos con ustedes. Allá hay otro también para que atendan a esta junta.
All right, 2 questions. I've got one up in front here.
I am from Aurora, Illinois. I'm visiting this evening, and it was just a great turnout. But I'm wondering how you got all your data out of the charter schools. They're so secretive that, to me, it's amazing you got what you got.
I have a question. Was that a nationwide research or? No, Chicago.
Soy de Aurora, Illinois, y nada más quería saber cómo es que utilice todos los datos sobre la escuela charter. Todos los datos sobre la escuela charter. Y la otra pregunta era de que si esos eran datos nacionales o solo de Chicago, y la respuesta es de Chicago.
It took a lot of perseverance, a lot of calls, but I didn't get from the charter schools. I got it from EASB directly. So the data that I present comes from the FACT system, that is what EASB uses to allocate special education funding to the city of Chicago. So the EASB is the Illinois State Board of Education. So we got it from them, and it took a lot of calls and a lot of follow-up and being very annoying person, but pay the price. But so they gave me that data. Interestingly, EASB data does not match CPS data, at least in total enrollments. And they know it, EASB know it, and they told me personally that they know they don't match it, they don't know why, but there may be some discrepancies on the data, which is quite interesting. But the data comes from there. So la data de los estudiantes con discapacidades viene del estado de Illinois, de su sistema de data que utilizan para alocar la plata para cada estudiante con discapacidad en la ciudad de Chicago.
Maybe one more question? No? All right, thank you so much everyone for coming tonight.
Gracias a todos por